Welcome to this akeytsu tutorial where we'll show you what we have to offer in the way of auto rigging. To get started, make sure that the panels that you see on your screen match the ones that we have in the video. If they don't, that means you are currently in animation mode and you want to switch over to rigging mode by pressing the tab key. Next, make sure that you are currently looking at the build pose of your character bank and you can then safely drag and drop your mesh into viewport. You should see it in an A pose or T pose, just like it was modeled. Next, you are going to select the mesh in the tree, which will display wireframes and also surface the auto rig icon in the rig atelier panel. Next, it's worth checking that your character is properly snapped to ground by displaying the grid. If it is not, you can easily adjust the origin. If the grid is not activated, just go into the decorator menu to do that, and it is located, as you've seen, at the bottom left corner of your screen. Now let's dig into the auto rig process and get started. The first thing you want to do is to actually select the type of skeleton that you're going to use. We offer preset templates for both Unreal Engine and Unity, but if you like to determine a personalized naming convention for your joints, that's something that's totally possible. Just choose the custom skeleton option, which will prompt a dialog on screen where you'll be able to enter custom names for all your joints. Here I'm just renaming shoulder to clavicle and chest to spine, for example. You can do whatever you want and whatever you see fit until you are satisfied. For the purpose of this video, however, I'm going to switch back to Unreal Engine and carry on. After you've selected the skeleton type, you can proceed to place a number of hot points. Akeytsu will require a minimum of 5 hot points to be placed, namely pelvis, neck, ankle, shoulder, and wrist. Once that's done, akeytsu tells you that there's no more that you need to add. You can quickly rotate around your character to check that they've been correctly placed. Default behavior is that we try and center the hot points in the very center of the topology that you've aimed at, but there can be a few hit and misses. Note that the hot points can be directly accessed through the tree. I'm pretty happy with all of this, so I'm just going to have to carry on with a few settings. Here I just select the number of joints that I want in my spine, and then I'll have to decide whether I want to rely on akeytsu finger auto detection or if I want to go a more manual route. At which point I'm going to actually decide the number of fingers that my model should have. And after I've done this, akeytsu will ask me for extra guidance in the form of additional hot points that will need to be placed at the tip of each finger. So yeah, that's just what I'm going to do for thumb first. Index, middle finger, ring finger, and little finger. It's important to notice at this point that we've only taken care of half the character. This is normal protocol because eventually everything will be mirrored onto the other side. Now that I'm happy with my hot points, I just proceed to step 1, which creates half the rig of my character. Generally speaking, akeytsu will get the work done 90% of the way, but we like to entrust our users with the final 10% so that they can make the end result just perfect. Here, by quickly reviewing our half rig that was generated, we can see that some joints will need to be slightly repositioned. While we're doing that, we're also going to activate the display of orientation so that we can take care of both as we go through the skeleton. In order to make my life a little easier, I'm also going to bump up the size of the orientations because they're so small by default. I can do that by increasing the general setting and also make the ones that are currently selected a little bigger to better find my way around. When that's done, I can proceed and get my hands dirty. Default behavior in akeytsu is that when moving a joint, its orients won't realign automatically. Luckily, you can make sure that this happen and get rid of tedious work by activating the sticky aim mode found into the spinner. Doing so will make sure that the joint that you're moving will keep on aiming at its child, while the parent will keep on aiming at him. I can now go up my spine and go down the leg and reposition everything. For the ankle joint, and in order to make sure that our reverse foot controller will work just as intended, you want to make sure that the orientation is flat compared to world. So in order to do that, we are going to reset the coordinates to 0, and then just make sure that it's aimed at the toe joint. Now we're good to go. We are going to adjust the spine a little bit more. Here, one advice I can tell you is to make sure that your spine joints are spaced out correctly, to make sure that when you want to perform spine bends, it will be easily adjustable. You can switch on and off the sticky aim mode as you reposition your joint. Here, for example, for the clavicle, I want to keep it kind of flat and compared to world. So yeah, I'm turning it off and turning it back on when I need it going down the arm. Now let's focus on one of the most difficult parts, which is the hand. Next, we're going to tackle one of the most difficult part of the rig, which is the hand, because it's a highly dense network of joints. First, I'm going to reposition the joints of my phalanxes so that they actually match the morphology of my hand. As you can see here, I can edit two joints in combination as long as I want to move change the same channel value. That's true not only for move channels, but also for rotation channels. Next, I want to reposition the orientation of my wrist. So here I want to make sure that the blue axis points towards the actual center of my palm, more or less, and that the XY plane formed by the green and red axis is considered the origin of my hand and is perfectly orthogonal. It should kind of feel like it can slice the wrist in half. Next, I'm going to go down each finger and adjust orients. Here, I'll have to explain the logic behind orientations of the otorig so that you understand what I'm doing. Usually, the blue finger is, the blue axis is aimed towards the child joint because it is the axis around which you want to twist. In the case of extremities, just like this fingertip, you just want to make sure that it's kind of aimed naturally at the tip of the limb, and here the tip of the finger. The red axis, which is the x-axis, is usually the one that we use for the main rotation. And here, quite naturally, that will be the axis around which fingers will bend. The green axis, which is the z-axis, will then define the sense of rotation. And in order for it to be consistent across all joints, I'm placing it upwards for all my fingers. And in order that it drives a more realistic bend motion, I will make sure that it's kind of placed a little bit external to the center of my palm. And this way it can follow a very, if you bend around the x-axis, which is red again, it will kind of follow a very natural motion. Now that we've taken care of the hand, we have a functional half rig with joints perfectly positioned and a coherent orientation for all the joints that will allow us to more easily animate our character down the road. Please note that all these tweaks are not necessary if you just wish to prototype your game, but they can come in handy if you actually want to produce some production ready animation for your game. Note that at any point you can also add additional joints even though you've set a number within the auto rig panel. For that you can use the add joint button that can be found in the rig atelier or the insert joint button next to it. This can be useful if you, for example, wish to have more control over your spine or over an additional props that is part of your character model. With the skeleton and orient in place, we are going to take a look at skinning influences. In order to do that, I've switched over to paint and check mode in the character bank panel, which is a mode that lets me deform my character to see how influence have an impact on deformation. Quite frankly, here I'm not too happy with what's happening when I lift up my arm. So I'm going to subtract some influence that's spread over the torso by using the paintbrush and right-clicking on the vertices where I want no influence at all. Of course, full transparency or no additional color means that there's no influence related to the selected joint. Yellow means that we are at maximum influence, 1, and blue is kind of from 0 to 0.3. Now I'm going to switch over to the smooth tool found in the painter in order to attain an acceptable deformation. And here you'll see that now when I lift my arm up and down, it's kind of realistic. I'm going to repeat that same operation for the knee armor pad that you see on screen and which bends when it shouldn't. I'm going to select one vertex that's part of the topology, extend selection with the star key to make sure that when I use my brush, it only affects the vertices that are currently under selection. The star key will allow you to extend selections to only the part of the topology from which you've selected vertices, just like I'm doing here again on screen. Using smart selection in combination with the basic brush tools, akeytsu is already a very strong software when it comes to editing your skinning weights efficiently. There are more advanced techniques to have a character that's completely production ready, which won't be covered in this video. We have a full-on tutorial series about skinning workflows that was captured and voiced by Addison Diebold, who is a senior technical animator with Redstorm Entertainment. I strongly encourage you to watch these videos if you'd like to learn more about these techniques. Now that I've made a few adjustments to my skinning weights, I'm completely happy with my half rig. And the good thing about akeytsu really is that you only need to take care about half your model, and then you can proceed to step 2 of the auto rig, which will mirror everything to the other side and add a few controllers that will come in handy when animating your character. We have reverse foot controls, just like you see on screen, that will allow you when right click and turn red to plant the feet of your character. As you can see, my right arm behaves just as expected from the work that I've done on the left arm beforehand. I can also make a quick review of the different body parts. So here I can start posing my character to test and see if the deformations behave as they should. Note that you could easily go back to editing the skin if you'd like to, even after everything has been mirrored. Here I'm making use of the IK handles that were added to the character at wrist level. These handles Just like the reverse foot controls that we've previously covered, can be right-clicked to be turned red, which means that they'll now be in IK mode. Thank you for watching this tutorial. I hope that you've enjoyed what you've learned today. By now you should be able to load your character into akeytsu, and by making use of the autorig, have it ready for some prototype animation. As mentioned before, there are more advanced techniques that you can learn about to try and fine-tune the rig of your character so that it be completely production ready. And to do that, I encourage you to visit our Aki School webpage on the website, which features more tutorials so that you can have a deeper knowledge about our toolset in akeytsu. Thank you again for listening, and enjoy animating in akeytsu. Have a very great day. Bye-bye.